11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with shows such as The R.I.F.T, Road Talk Radio, The Hollywood Connection, Just Short of Crazy, Knowledge from Behind the Veil, Nightmares Radio, Awakening the Unknown, The Blonde Trucker, and the cooperative show Night Visions. And now for your featured show.
And now, this is knowledge from behind the veil, with remain a veil apart and a non-Celeste. Let's peek behind the veil.
Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. This is Anan Celeste for Knowledge from Behind the Veil here at the R.I.F.T Network. And we are going to start our show by first sending a big hug and a big get well to our very own Renee Odell. She's having this little problems regarding her health, and unfortunately she's not going to be able to be with us tonight, but any of you that wants to actually pop into the conversation, we are taking calls tonight at 323-870-3877. At 323-870-3877. So we're going to talk about magic. That very mysterious word. White magic versus black magic. It doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter what our background is. We have heard this term, and we all have our very unique definition of what it is. In certain circles, like I call it, in certain circles, we have heard that all magic is bad. We have heard that only black magic is bad. And for other people, there is no such thing as black or white magic, just the heart of the witch, like in the movie, The Craft. That became really famous when that movie came out. A lot of people here I think it was in the 90s. Yes, 1996, 1997. The movie came out and everybody got a peek of what that is, at least through the eyes of Hollywood. The amazing thing is that in this day and age, there are many people that have a very specific opinion about what the dark arts and its counterpart, the light workers. This type of information serves for people in any philosophical path. The more you know about the many points of view and actual history of these concepts, the less likely you are to fall prey to rumors or infantilizing misconstrutions of the truth. Even within the witchcraft community, there's a lot of people that still don't know what this whole term actually started, how the whole thing started. I was going through a couple of my books and I found a very interesting quote. And I'm going to tell you who said it a little right after I read it to you. And it says, "We can only escape from the world by outgrowing the world. Death may take man out of the world, but only wisdom can take the world out of the man. As long as human is obsessed by worldliness, he will suffer from the karmic consequences of false allegiances. When, however, worldliness is transmuted into spiritual integrity, he is free, even though he still dwells physically among worldly things. Many people would recognize a very similar concept. Some people would recognize it from the Bible. Some people would actually recognize it from the Quran or from the Bhagavad Gita. They have very similar concepts. But this particular quote came from a very unlikely source, at least for the people that actually haven't dipped their toes into that type of thing, that type of studies. Actually, this quote is from Manly Palmer Hall. So he was a very famous 33-degree Mason and author about the black arts, and also about the what they call magic. I find it very interesting. I find it very interesting how he would actually put or differentiate between what is white magic and what is black magic. And it's extremely simple. It is extremely simple. But at the same time, it's not what people think. We can say that white magic is the type of workings of craft that they don't have ulterior motives. They don't have a self-serving purpose. And this is right out of the occult circles. Black magic, on the other hand, is anything and everything that has to do with here, now, and me. The more that I read through his writings, the more I understood how people from the Gnostic circles, from Freemasonry, from, actually people that actually consider themselves Satanists, or actually everybody from the left-hand path, which it's, in other words, the left-hand path is everything that is self-serving and actually using those forces, by all means dark, to actually get ahead in this world. They're not that much interested about the next world because in their minds and because of other reasons, they don't see it that far. Light workers, on the other hand, are completely not only convinced, but they live by this rule, the golden rule, that do no harm. And at the same time, not only do no harm, they think of life and the spirit as something eternal. That it's mainly where everything goes. Now, as he describes, and why am I picking this? Why? Because actually he is one of the few people that actually not only takes the time to write about these topics, but at the same time, he admits that in certain organizations, certain circles, certain beliefs, and certain practices, it's all about the self-serving nature of the human being. The same way that in the 70s and the 60s, Anton LaVey was highly criticized, for obvious reasons, about his satanic church. I'm not going to say that back then, not back then when I started studying all of this, to me it was rather confusing, because in my understanding, when I read the Black Bible, I was actually hoping to find the complete, not only the complete opposite, but everything that I thought I knew about this individual and what he actually preached, he passed on, preached, is mainly the basic principles of the self-serving life. In that case, we can say that there is a clear difference between what white magic and black magic is. White magic, and this is said by Mr. Manly. It says that white magic is written with a C and black magic ends with a CK. Now, not to be confused with the illusionist and so on and so forth. The K, and this is something that I did not know, the K was added added by Aleister Crowley, what many people consider the evilest man in the world and in history. This divide between the two forms of magic, it's clear as night and day. That's why one is white and the other one is black. What they call magi's. Magi's is nothing else than actually a magician or actually practitioner of the craft. Those magi who claim that there is no difference would fall into black magic. And this is the thing, this is the why. According to many esoteric practitioners, and I'm not talking about witches, no. I'm not talking about Satanists, no. I'm talking about esoteric practitioners that actually know the history and how all of these concepts have been used since the time of Solomon. Now, they said very clearly that the difference between black magic and white magic is actually truth and not hiding the truth. When a person says and actually predicates a belief that they know that is not true, even to hide it, even if it is to protect something, protect themselves, protect the group, or what have you, apparently that falls into the black magic practitioner. And I started to wonder, but why? How this can be possible? If you're not harming anybody, how the withhold of information can actually be construed as black magic? But apparently it goes against the ethics of the universe. Lie equals bad, because actually it hinders or actually prevents people from being educated. There is something really that hit me like a slap on the face when he wrote, "We can only escape from the world by outgrowing the world." Yeah, sorry. I already read that one. Yeah. White magic is supposedly utilized only for good or unselfish purposes, and black magic, we are told, is used only for selfish or evil reasons. Satanism draws no such dividing line. Magic is magic and be used to help or hinder. The Satanist, being the magician, should have the ability to decide what is just and when apply the powers of magic to attain his goals. Satanism is not a white light religion. It is a religion of the flesh, the mundane, the carnal, all of which are ruled by Satan, which is the personification of the left path. Now, when they mean, what do they mean about mundane and carnal and the religion of the flesh? In a nutshell, is me first, me second, and maybe, if there is time, you. That's it. And that struck me. Why? Because there are many people that consider themselves as white magicians, that consider themselves extremely religious, that consider themselves as people of light, that actually think of themselves first, think of themselves second, and if there is time, the rest of the world. There's also the problem of gain, and to gain something from what you do. That is also something very interesting. Why? For the main reason that when we say that we are working light, a light worker or what have you, that we only do good, we have to be very guarded about our thoughts. Very guarded about our thoughts, our words, and our actions. This is the thing. The problem with this is that many people cannot control they cannot control their words, nevertheless their actions and their thoughts. They act out of emotion. For example, many people say that they follow a specific path or a specific religion, the way that I mentioned before, and they would consider themselves as good, pious, and very devoted individuals. And yet they know nothing about compassion. They know nothing about giving. They know nothing about loving thy neighbor. Even though they preach it, they don't know what that means. And they cannot conceive that what they're doing is something wrong. Why? Because it's not self-serving. If it's not self-serving, they cannot understand it. And many people fall into that category. Black magic appeals to the mass mind. It appeals to the principles of our civilization. It offers something for nothing, as long as there is cupidity in the human heart. Meaning, I have good intentions, so it's okay. It will remain as a menace to the honesty and integrity of our race. If occult students would only remember that honesty is the deadly enemy of black magic, and that it holds no terrors for the individual who is true to himself and true to the golden rule, he can protect his own soul and those he loves from the insidious and unnatural influences. I'm pretty sure that all of you guys have heard that we have a little devil and a little angel in our shoulders. And that's also something that is shared in many cultures, especially in those in mysticism in the Middle East, that we have the jinn, a good jinn and a bad jinn. And the ones that we listen to are the ones that are going, depending of the nature of the beast that you're feeding, that is the beast that actually is going to rule your life. And I know that sounds a little shocking, but interestingly enough, that's exactly what it is. It doesn't matter. And this is something I always had this problem. When I would go and give, for example, Bible lessons or Bible teachings in these big groups. It is very apparent that they do want to belong to something that appeals to them. But at the same time, they cannot hold on to what they are not only learning, but what they're supposed to do according to their own religion. And I never quite understood the why. When you admit, and that goes to every single belief system, when you admit in your heart that you're not all good, you're not all bad either, then you can actually stop lying to yourself. And that is something extremely important, because people do lie to themselves all the time. They do tell themselves that they're in the right, that they're protected just because they got baptized, or just because they got an initiation, or just because they read a blog on the internet and all of a sudden they decided to actually print out a certificate that says that they're a high priest or a high priestess. It doesn't work that way. And many people would disagree. Many people would actually disagree, because this is not about ranks. This is not about labels. This is not about who knows more of what. It's the nature of the human being. It is the nature of the human being. And it comes to mind the Good Samaritan story, when all of these pious men saw somebody that it was in need. There is a reason why certain stories are in the Bible, to actually teach everybody. And we have those things, in other books, to teach us that it doesn't matter how many times you go to church during the week. It doesn't matter if you pray 50 hours consecutively. It doesn't matter how much you meditate. If your actions do not match your words or your quote unquote quasi devotion, that is pure evil. It is pure evil. And this is something that black magicians, and I'm going to use that term just for the sake of actually, black magicians know. They know how people that say that they are do-gooders, or that they have Jesus in their life, or they only serve a good God, and so on and so forth, they know that if it doesn't match with what you're doing, it doesn't match with what you're thinking, because it goes to the power of thought. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. If your thought process is some of selfishness, it is a black magical deed. And it doesn't matter if you practice or not. It doesn't matter. And maybe that's one of the reasons. Why. Because I also found out, I was talking to a person that does this for a living. And he actually told me this is maybe one of the reasons why people are unfortunately falling into what they call the possession trap. It's not that they're being possessed per se, it's that their conscience, their inner being knows that even though they can act and they can talk like a saint or a saintly person or a good person, their inner world, their inner mind is riddled with guilt. Guilt is something very dangerous, extremely dangerous, as a matter of fact, because it creates more demons. And we're not talking about a specific demon, just like the guy in The Exorcist or something like that. No, we're talking about thought forms. And that is something that maybe we can actually touch up on another show. Thought forms are created by the human mind. Many people attribute those thought forms, for example, to shadow people. It first starts like a black bull. First it starts like an emotional instability. Then nightmares. Then unfortunately it actually manifests as a black bull. And many times they're not, many people have reported actually saying that there is a sound, a very specific sound, like a clicking noise, just before it morphs into something else, something more humanoid. And then it graduates into what many people have called the shadow people or the hat man. Incredibly enough, many of those instances come from very pious people. People that go to church, people that actually try to live a godly life, try to live by the golden rule, or so they say. But all of those emotions, all of that guilt, the only way that it doesn't mean that because you don't remember at that exact moment that you feel guilty about something, or that something is literally underneath the carpet. That doesn't mean that your subconscious doesn't know. That is the dangerous part, that it will manifest. But I think we got away from the whole thing. Ironically enough, he told me that those are the people that were more susceptible to actually what they would classify as possession. Remember, all of these are just theories. They're just, like Carlos Castañeda said, the world between worlds can only be seen and interacted with by somebody that's actually walked both paths. And that's a very interesting notion that we can, it just came to mind, for example, the exorcism of Emily Rose, which even though that the movie was based on her case, it was loosely based on that. There are people who are going to say that she was just a mentally ill child that had extreme issues, and other people would actually call her a saint because she battled the devil, and even though she lost her life, she saved her soul. In that case, in that type of instance, there is a lot of factors that nobody, because I went through, not the case file, but actually an article that it was written right after the trial, that unfortunately they were just too divided. There was no middle ground. Of course, there was the people that thought that she was sick, and people who thought that she was completely possessed. There was a lot of psychological factors that actually would make more sense in regards to that. We also have the people, and this goes within the witchcraft community, and people who know nothing about witchcraft. So they are both in the same boat. Many people think that people that actually consider themselves black magicians, they have this supernatural power to cause physical harm, to disturb the mind and actually destroy you from your physical, mental, and emotional, to the point that nothing is left. Now, we have to disabuse our minds of the idea that the black magician cannot injure us because we are in the right, or that he is weak because he's evil. This is all a psychological game. It is a psychological game. It's a foolish concept taught to prevent a man from strengthening himself. And it is like a black propaganda of the black path itself. I have talked with many Satanists and people who actually follow the left-hand path. I'm not gonna lie, many of them are very articulate, extremely intelligent individuals, but at the same time, they have fallen prey to what they were taught. They have been felt prey of, since I am going to do this because this is what I want and I come first, so whatever is left, I really don't care because it doesn't affect me. And it is something that is told in the same, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody, because after all, it's only an opinion. In the same way that many people would think that if they get baptized and they accept Jesus into their lives, they are going to go straight to heaven. It doesn't matter who they kill, who they rape, what they do with their lives. It doesn't matter, because they declared that they were good. They declared that they were in the path of the winner and the one. And this is something that works on both sides. They both think that they can actually get away with certain things. And I find it fascinating, and I laugh, because the more you think yourself almighty, and that goes for the good and the bad, the more you think that you're above everybody else, it puts you in the same position as those people that you're trying to make everybody else believe, especially yourself, that you're better than them. And that is a very common trap. It is a very common trap, which I find sad. I really find it sad. Okay. The true black magic can become, and usually is, clairvoyant. And that is true, of course, for self-serving purposes. But he can never go any higher than the astral world. And this is something very important. Many people, especially mediums, especially what I call purposely induced mediums, they assume that those people or entities that they're communicating with, there are from the higher realms. Oh, she's my angel, he's my angel, and so on and so forth. People from the left-hand path or that practice black magic, most of them know that all of those entities come from the astral plane. We are here. The astral plane is here. The vibration is completely different. It can be felt physically. It can be felt emotionally. Hi, Sheila. It can be felt emotionally, and it can really mess you up. And I found that out because I saw this. It's not that somebody told me or I read it somewhere. There is this young man that actually, he wasn't dabbling. He was head first into everything that had to do with the left-hand path. And what I mean by left-hand path, for those that don't know, is Satanism or any self-serving type of witchcraft. And I'm going to touch on with the witches later. Right now I'm between the light workers and people that actually think that they can control certain things. Thank you, Carlton. I'm reading messages right here from Facebook, and also we're taking calls. So anybody that has something to add to the conversation, I am all for it. This boy, actually, I observed not only that he was clairvoyant, he had highly well-refined signs of telekinesis. He could actually move objects. He could actually affect his environment. The only thing that crossed my mind to ask him was, why are you doing this? If you know deep inside that is going to cost you. And his answer really, it was like a slap in the face, because I wasn't angry. I was actually devastated. He said, because if I can protect myself here, this was a child, if I can protect myself here and nobody can harm me, it goes to show you about his backstory, and nobody can harm me. And if it's necessary, fear me. I really don't care what happens to my soul after I die. That really struck me really bad. First, he didn't have the not emotional intelligence, but the emotional maturity to actually understand what that means. And at the same time, he was fully aware why he was doing what he was doing, why he could do certain things. But at the same time, he didn't think that the price was that much to pay. Okay. Black magicians becoming a conscious channel for these forces launches a stream of what they will call, not me, they will call hell demons into the world. In so doing, he sells his own soul. And when people say, and this is where the concept of selling your soul means, and you're going to be very surprised. When you sell your soul is when you allow those thought forms, those entities, those forces to go through your soul and use you. It's as simple as that. Why is it like a price to pay? The price is not necessarily your soul per se. It's it taints your spirit. Like when you have a pond of water and you put your dirty hands in it. Sure, it may not look muddy, but it is tainted and it is dirty. You wouldn't drink that water after you put your dirty hands in it. And the more, you don't change the water. You just, every time that your hands are dirty, you're just going to dip them in there and go like this. It's going to come a time where that water is not going to be cloudy. It's going to be pure mud and very black. That is what they mean about selling their soul. It's not that it's because it's so funny. Many people think that when people are doing certain practices, that especially people's Satanists or what have you, and even witches for some Christians, that they sell their soul to the devil. No, you can be very Christian. You can be very in your mind doing a light work, but the minute that you do certain things against other fellow human beings, when you discriminate, when you ignore, even by omission, you're clouding your old soul and you don't notice. And you know this type of people. Why? And that goes also for those witches that think that they only practice white magic. You recognize these people because they get not only offended, but they get defensive about what they do. They get really defensive, not by what they practice, about their own actions. And that is truly the danger. That is how you sell your soul. By seeing yourself as something, but doing something completely different. That is the danger. Now, they do not even know that their worth is worth saving. And those are the people with ambition. They are living honestly. They are good Christian people, but so purely negative that they are positively advertising the fact that they are easy marks for anyone desiring to avail himself for the opportunity. They're not black themselves, but they are the type that helps to make possible the perpetuation of black magic. We see that a lot. We just don't want to admit it. We hear it a lot. We watch it on TV. We see it on the news media. People that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if what they're doing is wrong. But in their minds, they have the right to do it. This is the self-righteous mentality of I am better than you, I'm better than anybody else. And they group together. That's the whole point. This is the thing that, wow, this is the thing that actually gets me. That they don't understand that baptism is not going to save you from your own doings. And whether or not you're going to be forgiven by the person that you wronged or the group of people that you wronged, then God is going to do it for me. That is a huge oxymoron. It is a huge oxymoron. And because we have it in our hearts, in our souls to actually choose another path. Black, and I'm going to repeat it right now. Black magic, according to people that practice it knowingly, is a self-serving deed. If you are doing something that you know that it's not for the benefit of everybody, including yourself, and sometimes even sacrificing yourself to actually do for the greater good, and you lie about it under a pious cloth, saying, oh, God is with me. Really? Really? This is exactly what people saw at the witch trials in Europe. This is exactly what they saw here at the witch trials of Salem. Pious people that would actually condemn others about something that they were doing. You're getting what I'm saying? This is like the cheater that accuses its mate or the spouse of cheating when they are the ones that are doing it. It falls into the same category, which I found fascinating. In this particular end of the spectrum, as I call it, they sell their soul in exchange for the powers these demons will give him over his fellow man. These powers of these elemental creatures are practically unlimited, and there are many depraved souls who are glad to barter their immortal spirit for power, which these demons give them over the material world. That is the appeal. When people want money, they want sex, they want power over others, they want to submit others to their willpower. It doesn't matter how much it takes. And most of them, they're not even aware of it. This is the kicker. If you really think about it, it puts in question every single major religion in the world. All of them. Every belief system that declares themselves only as good. It could be seen in a whole new perspective, because the more that you see the behaviors of these people, the more that you see them and you analyze their actions and their thoughts, the way that they express them, you see their motives behind it. Either is to gain money, gain fame. I don't know. People are very weird when it comes to those things. Attention, that is a major thing. When they want attention, when they want to actually oppress other groups of people, you can see it by their actions. And that's why we have Muslims that they don't abide by the Quran. We have Jews that they don't abide by the Old Testament. We have Christians that obviously they have no idea what Jesus meant when he said, love one another. Forgive those that persecute you, etc., etc. That is the problem, that we don't want to see it. And yet we call everybody that is not the same as us demonic, heathens, devil worshippers, black arts practitioners, and so on and so forth. And I have seen this all of my life. And I'm pretty sure you know a person like this. This is the thing. This is a soul-serving process. A black magician is one who seeks to gain authority over spiritual powers by means of force rather than by merit. In other words, he is the one who is trying to storm the gates of heaven, and he is the one who is seeking spiritual power and occult dominion with with some other motive that is not the one that he professes, he or she. You're going to be very, very surprised. Very surprised. Many people are going to say, what the hell? The black magic motto is might is right, that it translates to survival of the fittest. I know a lot of people that live by that creed. Survival of the fittest. Me first. Our people first. And everybody else can go second or none at all, because they're not like me. If this practice is persisted long enough, it can do terrible things to the fabric of the soul and the spirit. The spirit will be unable to disentangle, will not going to be able to untangle itself from the substances of the lower worlds. And when I say lower worlds, it's everything in the astral plane and lower. And most remain enmeshed therein until the dissolution of the universe at the time of the night of the Brahma. Brahma is the energy of the universe. Everything that is in it have existed or will exist. This is the concept of hell. And I know that many people actually are now going to say, oh, that's it. hell, it's not necessarily flames and sulfur. It's actually being surrounded by this darkness and these lower astral entities that actually helped you get that Mercedes, helped you take your neighbor's wife, that helped you, hi Teddy, helped you do all of those things that you wanted in life. They are going to accompany you for the rest of eternity until the universe collapses on itself. That's a long time. That's a really long time. Well, it is described in many ways. The rings of Saturn and so on and so forth. When the divine spark is cast into the blackness of the infinity through the rings of Saturn, mean the far corners of the universe, by taking this path, the ego, this is something that many will recognize, the ego attains darkness. The more you are an a-hole to your neighbors and your fellow human beings, the darker your ego is going to become. Especially if you can get away with it. And you get used to it and you want more and more and more. That's why they call it selling yourself to the devil. Now, by taking this path, the ego attains darkness. But it's in the darkness that the tomb and unconsciousness reach through the path of perversion and negation. What does that mean? Perversion and negation. This is the perfect example. Many people would take something as beautiful as the New Testament, flip it around, and even though that is very specific, they pervert the words. For example, and this is going to be, I don't care who likes it or not. In the Bible, it says that you can, that is punishable by death, or you don't go to heaven, whatever, if you're a homosexual, if you're a witch. That is called a perversion of the word. And not only that, negation. When you negate something, when you profess something that only attains to you and your group of people, that not only becomes a problem, but you are not taking responsibility. If you're going to follow a creed, if you're going to follow a specific path, it doesn't matter what it is, but you negate the truths that are hidden within it, even if it is written by other people, even if it is something that many people believe. If you negate and say that's not what it says there, or yeah, that there is a contradiction here, but I like this one better, so this is the one that I'm going to follow. That is negation, and that also darkens your soul. Its rewards is the Black Death and the loss of the soul. Such an ego wanders in a great unknown, without hope, reason, or understanding, while the endless wheels of chaos dissolve the bodies of which it has failed to make the proper use. There is a lot of stories in ancient books that the soul can be destroyed, or it can make so it doesn't exist anymore. That is literally a metaphor to actually what your spirit, the way that it's contaminated by your dark ego, unfortunately, that is something that people cannot see, only in your actions. It atrophies it. It doesn't destroy it. It's like a torture, because it is torturing. Remember the guilt part? It falls into this category. Now, occultists know that humans can be killed in a particular way so that the human spirit is harnessed. We saw how great initiates, like Elijah, fashion their own vegetable and animal selves in such a way that they can become chariots with which to travel through the spiritual worlds. In occult orders and cycles, it is also known that black magicians can use the souls and spirits of others, their sacrificial victims, as chariots. This goes to show the way that people see other people, like pawns. Like, I am going to use this other person, myself, my own family members, even if I have to destroy them to actually attain what I want. It doesn't get more evil than that, right? And yet we see it in every single circle. We see it with every single person that actually thinks that they're justified, because that's another thing. They feel justified to do all these things. By this is the thing. Human beings have appetites. Human beings have, well, I'm going to call them animal desires. And on these lower planes of the astral world, some say that they're strange creatures. And that also can be a metaphor, or it can be true. They're strange creatures that some resembled debased human beings, and others shaped like animals, lizards, snakes, and other reptiles. The power of the black magic lies in this ability to direct these soulless creatures, which, while not in really individualized things, still have tremendous power over their essence, both in the body of nature and of individuals. That in itself, it is a double-edged sword. It's like buying a very dangerous pet and letting it loose in your house. And it slithers, and you never know when it's going to strike. A very poisonous pet. You like your pet. It brings something very weird to your life, but sooner or later it's bound to kill you because you let it loose in your house. And when I say house, I mean your body, your spirit. In that sense alone. And with this, we're going to close the first hour, because I wanted to be very clear about something. If you consider yourself a light worker, if you consider somebody that follows God, if you consider yourself as a white witch, if you consider yourself as a person that is just doesn't want to do harm to anybody, doesn't want riches or power or anything like that, you still have to be very careful with your thoughts. Case in point, we are not infallible. We feel people hurt us, and sometimes in the very dark depths of our minds and souls, sometimes we want to retaliate. Sometimes we say, sometimes even in a jokingly matter, I hope a house falls on her head. I hope this happens to her. Even if we think it, it's not that we didn't commit a crime. It's not that it may or may not happen. It's the fact that you know that you just wished harm upon another human being. You know that you discriminate against others. You know that if you had the chance, you would kill a human being. You know. Even if nobody else knows it, you know. And that's what makes it dark. Because it hides, it slithers. And when it slithers and hides, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you pray or you go to church or you put all your crystals in the four corners of your house to absorb dark energy. The biggest, brightest, and most holiest of vessels, your body, your soul, your mind. That's where the impurity is. That's where the danger lies. That is the true problem. You cannot hide from yourself. It's like having a very dark, deep secret. When you know that you're capable of doing certain things, that if given a chance and you can get away with it, you would do them. And then you lie to others and in front of the mirror saying, I would never do that. That is black magic. Magic is not a ritual. Magic is not something, a spell that you call on. Is an energy. It's an energy that dwells inside you to manifest. And when you think, when you feel, those are the catalyst to actually manifestation. And that's why you have to be so aware of how you proceed and see yourself and see life. Because when you lie to yourself, there is no hiding from that. So we're going to pause here for a second. We're going to go to commercials. And then when we come back, we're going to discuss what is white magic, of what people think that is white magic. So let's do this.
At this time, the R.I.F.T would like to recognize its sponsorship. We'd like to say thank you to Lords and Lilies in Fredericksburg, Virginia. From Home Emporium, Carmel Church, Virginia. The Insurance Doctor, wanting to save you 30% on your car insurance. And last but surely not least, we would like to thank Divine Magic, Lakeside, Virginia. Thank you to all of you and your support in watching us grow.
So thank you. I just put a pause really quick there. Amazingly, amazingly, I'm really liking this topic. So if you guys think that this would be do any good to anybody else, you're free to share the video, or actually connect so you can hear the show using the link, which I think that would be amazing too. Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Carlton. But yeah, it's been a very interesting week. And we're back to Knowledge from Behind the Veil. This is Anand Celeste with you guys here in this amazing Wednesday, middle of the week. And we were talking about white magic versus black magic. It's been a very interesting first hour, I have to admit. Very interesting first hour. A lot of people are not going to be very happy because of of what it was said, but these are not only the beliefs of many people, this is actually common sense. And those that actually deny these type of truths are only lying to themselves. So, to each their own. Now we're going to go to the white magic. What is white magic? What people would say that is white magic. When you go on Facebook, when you go on Instagram, when you go on YouTube, you're going to find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of channels, videos, blog posts, books on what they call the light workers, what they call white magic, white witches, and so on and so forth. Now, the more I have encountered the different faces, I'm going to call it that way, the different faces of the do-gooders and the well-wishers and people that are really trying to make a difference. Many of them would not call themselves one or the other. At least the ones that are they're living by the golden rule, that they're actually doing they follow more precepts of the major religions that people that have done it for the whole of their lives. They actually feed the poor. They actually don't discriminate. They actually love one another. They don't berate their fellow human beings just because they're different. They don't see colors. They don't see nationalities. They don't see all of those things that poison the soul. And those type of people are very rare. They're very rare, especially in this day and age when everybody feels that they're justified to do and say and believe whatever they want to, which they do. They do have the right to believe whatever they want to. They do have the right to make their own mistakes. But is it fair to say, not for other people, but for the person, is it fair to say that they're doing not only the right thing, but the honest thing? Are they being honest with themselves? because we all say that we want to make a difference. We all say, and this is people that are lying and people that are actually believing this. They say that they want to make a difference, that they want to unite the world, that they see angels, or they know for a fact that they're going to go to heaven or the summer lands, like in other, like witches would call it, because they're good. And ironically enough, this is where the matter of opinion falls into. What is good for me, it may not be good for you. What it's good for everybody as a group may not be good for the individual. So how can we know? How can we know that we're not falling into the trap of the Savior? And when I say the trap of the Savior, is when we feel that we want to be so good, that we want to be so given, and to have this image, this very specific image of ourselves, which it stinks even saying it, to egomania, megalomania, as the Savior complex. That's why we have, and when I say we, it's everybody in the world. There have been so many interesting prophets. And when I say interesting prophets, is that we have seen them all. That they say that they are an angel, that they're an alien, that they're Jesus incarnated, that they're the prophet or of whatever. And you can see that even though in their minds they come from a good place, that even though in their minds they think that they're going to do good deed, it stinks of ego. It does. And that is a very hard thing to perceive from yourself. You can see it in other people, but it's very hard to see it in yourself. You want to save the world. You want to save everything. And that is a problem. It is a problem. Why? Because when we can't negotiate with ourselves, when we cannot, when we cannot see what we're doing, it's going to be next to impossible to actually renegotiate that with your ego. Saying, you are not omniscient, you're not omnipotent, you are not a God. So that's when the whole thing just starts falling apart. Why? The Superman syndrome, exactly. The Superman syndrome. Then we have the martyrs. We have the martyrs. That they actually think that by sacrificing themselves, they can save the world. That in that specific instance, it's ego. It is ego. It's not that nobody found out and it was just on the spur of the moment and it just happened. No, these people actually not only practice to be a martyr, they actually go and make it very public, extremely public. Like, look at me, I'm sacrificing myself for you and everybody else. That is part of the ego. Now, what other concept could you attribute to a person that declares themselves as the bringer of good news or as the bringer of knowledge, and then decides to actually announce themselves as the voice of God? Doesn't matter which God, doesn't matter what you believe. As the voice of God, the voice of reason, the only voice of reason, because they have the backing, the exclusive backing of said God and said force and said entity, said spirit, what have you. That is ego. It's all about the ego. And then we find these unsung heroes. Not the ones with the tights, not the ones that we see in TV. We have these unsung heroes that they do good every single day, that they don't hold any of those polluting thoughts in their minds. But we don't hear from them. We don't know that they're there. Actually, most of those people prefer it that way because there is no need. There is no need for the parade. There is no need for the recognition. There is no need for that because that is ego. The danger, I guess, is that we will fall into the preacher category, what I call the mega church syndrome. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against that. Actually, I quite enjoy seeing other people just parading and putting all of their life savings into something that in their minds is going to save their soul. It's not only tragic, but it's, I enjoy, for example, the videos of, for example, these big preachers that have these huge churches and with the 3 planes and 4 boats and 4 houses. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, I wonder what Jesus would say if he would see this. And it comes to mind that part of the Bible when he kicks out the merchants from the temple. But at the same time, I realize that that's not my place. People are actually happy. They feel empowered when they help their church, the bigger the better, to buy those planes, to do all those things. I don't know, maybe it's a psychological thing that they think that they're contributing to something. I don't know. And when the test comes, they would give 200, 300, and when I saw this, I just wanted to vomit. $5,000 in the collection plate, just so everybody can see that you're donating to the church. So the pastor can buy another jet, which I find it hilarious. And yet, people actually think, and that's why they call it seed money. Seed money. People actually think that the more that they give at the church, the better are they going to be with God. That reminded me, hundreds of years ago, before Martin Luther actually decided to actually break from the Catholic Church and write all of those precepts about what the things that they needed to change in the church. When people used to buy salvation, literally give money to the church to actually forgive their sins. The same church that strayed away from the Catholic Church, and when I say the same church, is Christians, period. Because that was something that was considered heretic and it was considered unholy, and you don't need to have money to actually receive forgiveness. Now we exchange it into giving money to actually receive favors from God. That is quite terrifying. It's terrifying. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just terrifying. And on the other spectrum, because this is the lie that we tell ourselves, that we are good, that we are all good, that everything that we do, as long as we profess to be something, it makes it real. That goes now into what in the witchy community, in the witchcraft community, when they say, I don't practice black magic, I'm only a white witch. I'm only a white witch. I have seen many white witches that in the pressure of pain, in the pressure of anger, in the pressure of just being human, they would think, say, and even do, knowingly that these things exist, that these cancers of the soul exist. Knowingly, they said, screw it. I am going to either do a spell or do a ritual, and I'm going to get even. I am going to do this because I want justice. I deserve it. I want justice. And that in itself, it's terrifying. Why? Because at the moment, they know and they don't want to know that they're actually injuring their own field, their own soul, their own space with such a selfish endeavor. It's until they come down that they actually justify it to themselves as, I was just defending myself. I was just defending myself. Many people criticize when they see a person at the top of the mountain just meditating. And we have the sadhus over there in India that the only thing that they do is sit and meditate. They don't work, they don't do anything else. They just sit there and meditate. For us Westerners, that would be completely incomprehensible. Completely incomprehensible. And yet, monks, some priests, and all of these groups of people remove themselves from society. They remove themselves literally from everything that they could have an interaction with, so they don't pollute themselves. And when I say pollute themselves, is literally what it says. Not to get into a state or a situation when they actually pollute their own soul with bad thoughts, with cravings, because that is the root of all suffering, craving. When we crave what we cannot have, when we crave what we did have and we liked it and we want more, even though that is bad for us. Those are the things that these people are running away from. And that is very important, that for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years, the human being already knew that it was weak enough, that they didn't have the enough strength, that they were be around other people. Their own mechanism of judgment was going to kick in automatically. Their own mechanism of protecting themselves is going to kick in. That they knew that they were capable of doing terrible things. So on purpose, they removed themselves from society to keep their thoughts and their actions by force in check. I think that is really fascinating. And yet, billions of people are outside of these monasteries, that are outside of these spaces of thought, outside of these spaces of meditation, claiming to be that they have the same enlightenment, claiming to have the same control, claiming to have the same intentions, claiming to have the same devotion as those people that have no interaction with anybody. Nobody has pissed them off. Nobody has done them any harm. So there is no need for revenge. And yet, many people just put themselves at that pedestal on purpose, just for their own sake. There is one thing for you to tell yourself, I'm trying to be a good human being. And something completely different is when you like a good actor, you actually put this mask and you act on a play. You actually take it that far to actually put on a mask of piety, put on a mask of goodness. I think that every soul is inherited human, but these people actually go the extra mile to actually appear to be more godly than their fellow human being. And they act on a play. Then when they're alone, when they're really alone, I'm not talking physically, I'm talking about within their own mind and their own soul, they know this is where the whole thing is, the skeletons in the closet that only you know. That's when they all come out to play. And the more skeletons you have in the closet, the more the play and the role is going to be enhanced, because we have to hide more. We have to not only pretend for the sake of other people, because so many people would say, I don't give a damn about others. I do it because this is the way that I am. And I have heard that before. They have so many skeletons in the closet. This is the guilt factor again, that they have to compensate. It is quite fascinating. It is quite fascinating how it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your creed. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter your culture. It doesn't matter none of those things. This need to present a very unique face to the world. It doesn't compare with the one that you see in the mirror. Not because it's bad or it's good. It's just because you're already convinced that you are a certain way. And in some cases, for some people, they think that they cannot change. And the only way out of that predicament so they can function in society is to pretend to be somebody else. And that to me is very tragic. This is exactly what the black magicians call lying to yourself. Burying those lies. White magic doesn't lie. What is white magic? It's simple. It's truth. Truth. Not your truth, not my truth. Truth. That is white magic. As simple as that. Truth. There are no dark rooms. There are no closets. There is nothing there. But when there is a very dark room and you turn in the light, you see everything that it's in there, so you don't stumble. The minute that you turn off the light, or if there is no light at all, you have no idea where you're going to stumble. So you reach out. You reach out and you try to feel what is in the dark room, and your mind starts to make up stuff. They're monsters, they're demons, my dead grandma. It doesn't matter, because your mind is coming up with all those things. And this is the thing, and this is my personal opinion. The more guilt a person harbors, the more sense of detachment a person expresses and acts upon, the more disconnected that they are. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter what they practice. The more detached they are unto their own world, that dark room becomes populated with their own desires, with their own fears. And this is exactly what in certain circles in the occult call it the demons. That's why I love, there is a meme that there is a little girl and there is this shadowy thing that is over her head, and she's smiling, and she said, I am a strong person because I get up every day to face my demons. That's one of the memes. To face my demons. That is an incredible and very powerful symbolism. Most people don't want to do that because it's too painful. And I have worked with women, I have worked with kids, I have worked with teenagers, and I have worked with a lot of people within, even in religious and non-religious environments. They're even afraid of saying out loud what they're afraid of. And it's not Bigfoot, it's not aliens, it's something deep within their psyche. Something very deep within themselves, that even though they seem to be all good, they seem to be all pious, and they really do believe this, and there is nothing in their behavior that would say otherwise. They have this dark part of their psyche that they're deadly afraid of. And the more fear you feed to this space, the bigger it gets. The bigger it gets. I heard a couple of years ago, actually when the Columbine thing happened, I heard somebody say, that type of people that do those terrible things, it's not that they're damaged, sick, or completely dead inside. It's just that their demons took over. Their dark, hidden demons took over. And that is the result of it, of the collective mind, of the collective disease, of what the whole thing entails. This is the kind of thing that people don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that there is a possibility that they are doing harm to others. They would not accept it. They would not agree. They say, I'm all good. I do what I want to do. Because my way is the good way. My way is the only way to actually do good. And it's not infuriating. It's not that it's preposterous. No, it's just plain sad. Because they're not trying to lie to anybody. No, in their minds and in their hearts, they're telling the truth. They really do believe that their way is the better way, that their space, their beliefs, it's the only way. They really do believe this. And I have a problem. I did have a problem, not anymore. I had a problem with those type of people. In the sense that, and I would ask, how can you not see that in the place that you are alone? You are alone. Even if there are millions of people that think like you, in the sense of they might have similarities, they do similar things, they speak similar words. In your world, in your space, the only person that is right is you. The rest is just a country club where everybody goes and plays golf or something like that. They have similarities, but in that dark place, the only person that lives is that person. And this is the thing, they know it. And 9 out of 10 times they would say, I know, but that was my path. That was my path. I don't know. Maybe that is the problem that I have with certain, not groups, because they think that they are representing something in specific, but in reality they're just representing what the stage in the life where they are right now. I don't think people are damaged forever. People are not damaged. They're just asleep. And when you're asleep, you can dream of very crazy stuff that you cannot control. But there is something called a lucid dream. There is something called a lucid dream that even though that you're still in the dream, that you're still dreaming, you have complete and total control of what happens there. That is not that far from the truth. People are either born asleep or either they're born awake, but most times than not, they're born asleep. And they go sleeping and dreaming through their whole lives until something happens in the dream. Something happens in their life that they realized that none of what they thought it was real is real. None of it was real. That you make and you actually decide what the dream is going to be about. Many people feel powerless because they think they cannot control their lives, that they cannot control what happens around them. They don't think that they can control their reaction to it, but they just feel powerless, like many people feel in dreams. They feel powerless. And this is not a notion that is superficial. It's something that is very deep rooted inside the subconscious mind, that you cannot control your dreams. And in the same way that many people have, by choice, by education, by chance, they actually learn how to lucid dream. That's what I call living on purpose. We have to live on purpose. But for that, you have to wake up. For that, you really have to wake up. And that waking up means that you have to just put aside what you thought you knew about the world, what you thought you knew about reality, because that is the correct term. If you really think about it, there are 7-something billion people in the whole world. And if you want to use a metaphor for each person, you can actually say that they're living in a separate reality from everybody else. And every once in a while, either by chance, by purpose, it doesn't matter, each universe that person represents interlaps with other universes. Something very similar to string theory, something very similar to quantum mechanics. They say that there is only 11, 12, not necessarily 13 dimensions to actually explain the fabric of the universe. But if you really think about it, 7 billion active consciousness creating reality at the same time. Not only creating reality, but manifesting it, consciously or unconsciously. Dreaming, being supposedly awake. And then there's the lies that we tell ourselves. That's another universe with a completely different background. That's why many people that live in the same place, sometimes in the same household, have very different visions of life, because their reality is different. The way that they see the world, because that is exactly what makes it real. Your awareness makes it real. That's why we cannot explain how that person can actually think that that's okay. How can that person do what they did and don't feel remorse? Or on the other hand, why nobody can see that this person is actually doing something amazing for everybody? People don't see it because they choose not to see it. That reality doesn't exist in their universe. That is an interesting concept. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that, like Schroeder's cat, the cat could be alive and the cat could be dead, but the possibilities is intriguing. we see the world in completely different lights. We may find people that would say that they see the same thing that we do. And yet, more times than others, that's not necessarily the case. They just needed that sense of belonging, that sense that I want to be part of something bigger. And since you think the same thing that I do, maybe we can build our own interdimensional community. That is a way of seeing it too. So that is the interesting thing. So since I'm alone here, I am going to get this call to see who it is. So hi, you're on the air.
Yes, it's Josh from Night News Radio.
Hi, Josh. How you doing,
Hi.
sweetie?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Very, very happy to hear from you.
Good. Well, I was just wondering, like, I heard you talking about, like, different universes, and, like, when I first came, the one thing I've been talking about for years, and no one seems to want to wake up to it at all, is the whole idea. I think the author, one of the authors, one of my favorite fantasy authors, his name's Michael Moorcock. He wrote about it, and I think he was channeling it. He came up with the Eternal Champion series, and it was about a hero being in different incarnations in what's called the multiverse. And I strongly believe in a multiverse, and I believe, like, there are infinite dimensions within, like, infinite universes within this multiverse. And, like, I've been, like, that's one thing I've been trying to tell people, but they seem hell-bent on just focusing on this one universe or whatever their singularity is.
Yeah, that's true. That's why it, like you said, and I don't know about you, I love reading. And one of the things that I love about authors is their ability to create worlds within a world, with their own characters, with their own, sometimes whole universes are created on paper. And when you ask the authors how you came up with all of this, they would say they already exist. They just told me what to write. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that same phenomenon. Like, I'm a fantasy writer, and I write fantasy and horror, and it's like when I write my stories, it's like it's almost like I'm channeling them, like it's like I've been there before, like it's already happened or is happening. And yeah, it's pretty, like I just recently, like within the past couple of years or so, like realized that it wasn't like it isn't like what they say, like the whole thing about it being, they say, they think we pull it out of our butts and everything, as authors, but we don't. It's like being connected to something else entirely.
Yep, that is true. I know exactly what you mean. It's like you have this whole story already in your mind. That out of nowhere, you have this whole new universe when it's time, with its circumstances, with the people, with its specific characteristics, and with the whole personalities developed. And it's very challenging to actually bring it to paper, but it is possible. It is possible because they already exist. And many people would say not literally, but
I've had the my character, and I know my girlfriend Ariana experienced it too. Like, we have stuff like we think we have planned out for our characters and stuff, but then the character says, no, this is the way it really went. And we're like, okay, that's not what we planned to do it, but if that's what really happened, we're going to write it down.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah, I mean, I think what you and I are touching on, like, and it's something that, like, the majority of people, like, for some reason, aren't aren't ready to receive yet, or something. Because, I mean, I've been talking about this for years, and my mainly I talked I talked to my friends about it. Like back when I used to hang out with a bunch of friends, and sometimes we'd get a little tipsy, and that's when I'd talk about like the multiverse and everything, and they start. This was years ago, and they'd start saying, "Oh, here Josh goes again on the multiverse and everything," and they'd chalk it all up to me being drunk and everything, and or high or whatever, and they just like it never like they didn't think any more about it. And I said, no, like I'm telling you this, like I've known about this all like along. And but yeah, it's just something I guess people aren't ready for yet.
You would be surprised the many people, all the people are actually, it's just that they don't say anything. They don't say anything. I call it the Sheldon complex, because they're afraid, you know? Yeah, the Sheldon complex, that they have all of these possibilities and all of these explanations about something that it should be very common. But at the same time, I tell you something, Josh. 500 years ago, 600 years ago, everybody thought that the earth was flat. Everybody thought that there is a lot of things that have changed, and people that used to come up with certain theories, they were villainized, they were ridiculed, and look where we are. And the same thing is still happening today. Today, we have brilliant minds. We have people that actually see the world and what I call them, what many call the matrix, for what it really is. But they're so afraid of saying anything, because the ridicule or people really wants to stay asleep. So it's a very lonely existence. People really don't want to wake up.
I grew up in a in a family that was kind of blinded by religion, and they had this one, like, you know, just view of the world, the view that the church taught them, and it was like pretty much like view it that way or you're damned kind of thing. Like you have to view it from this one perspective that is very narrow-minded. And like when I started like tapping into these different things, my parents would always tell me I was wrong or whatever. You know, I was always ridiculed for that, or you know, I was considered like you know, being like that I was being deceived by the devil or something. I'm like, no, like there's nothing, like I haven't consciously gone, like I haven't been practicing black magic and summoning demons and all that. Like this stuff comes to me naturally. Like I'm not tapping into dark forces. Like I can't help what comes to me, you know, and that's what I always tried to tell like my family, but they never listened, and they thought either I was deceived by Satan, or like I was you know, borderline schizophrenic, you know.
It's very funny because one of the things that actually brought me to this place where I'm right now is actually digging for truth. And when I say digging for truth, was going against what I was taught. And I wanted to prove that they were right. I know this sounds crazy, but I wanted to prove that what I was taught in church and school, because I went to a very Catholic school, that I wanted to prove that they were right. And what I found was decades, even millennia of opinions of people that weren't even there, that had no idea what they were talking about. And on top of it, that they would go on record and say, we changed this to fit our agenda. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it hurt. It hurt really bad. It hurt. And there is no way to go around that. I have been called things that you have no idea. And from being a witch, from being a heretic, from being a demon, that was my favorite, because if I was a demon, I would be a size 10 and be 25 for all eternity. So that doesn't compute. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I've been called like a warlock, a son of Satan, all this crap, and I'm like, you don't even know what I'm about. Like, you haven't even like experienced the awakening I've experienced, and you don't know just how hard it is to have to listen. Like, I just wanted to tell them, these people that criticize me, you don't know how hard it is to have to go through this and then listen to your bull crap and like condemning me and judging me when I'm all this time, constantly every day, day after day, praying for the truth, seeking God and praying for the truth. And God is the one who helps me in this. And you're saying it's the devil, and it's just hard as hell. Like, when people just are so close-minded, and, I'm still like, I'm still like searching for the truth, looking for the truth constantly. And, it's just, it's become a thing that, like, except for like with Tally and you guys and Ariana, like, I don't talk to anyone else about it, because like, it's just so many years of being hurt and like judged and everything. So when I come across this stuff, I I tell those that I know are going to be receptive to it and open-minded. But if none of those people are around, then I keep it to myself.
Yeah, and that is a very common phenomenon. The person that doesn't say anything is usually the most enlightened one. Why? Because people that know that they don't have all the answers would actually say the complete opposite. Said, you have to believe what I believe, or either you're going to hell, like you said, or you're completely wrong and delusional. And for example, and it doesn't matter who gets offended, because maybe that's why I'm here. Many people that only follow Yahweh, meaning God for Christians, Muslims, and Allah, and they are hell-bent that that's the only path, or the only God. And then when they hear people, for example, from pantheistic religions, that they believe in other gods or in a goddess, they either label them as crazy or as devil worshippers, because everything else except that is devil worship. And I have been in front of a class of pastors, because I did seminary about 20 years ago. And afterwards I was actually teaching would-be pastors. And I asked them, how do you know your God exists? For a full 30 seconds, they all just looked at each other. So because the Bible says so. And said, well, we have the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, that's usually their answer.
Yeah, we have the Bhagavad Gita, we have the Quran, we have many books, the Book of the Kabbalion, that it actually mentions a whole bunch of gods and a whole bunch of demons. You haven't read those books. No, that's heretism. That's from the devil. I said, how do you know? How do you know if your God is not the devil? Do you know the God that you serve? Nobody said anything.
I get what you're saying. Like, I mean, I myself am monotheistic and do like worship, like, I guess you'd say like Yahweh or Jehovah. There are many names for him. But like, I'm the kind of person that's open-minded, and like, I don't care if somebody else wants to worship some other God, as long as they're not like killing people in that God's name. That's fine. Like, I don't see it as a problem. I mean, I honestly, that's one thing I've never understood, like why people want to condemn others and say, oh, you have to believe in my God or you're going to go to hell and you're wrong and all that. And they claim like to be a follower of Jesus and everything. And Jesus himself said that people would know that they are his followers because they love other people, not because of their dogma or what they believe, but because they love others.
Exactly. And that is something that is very scarce in certain circles. Very scarce. Because they think that by faith they get saved, not by the deed. And that was something that it was added into the Bible in certain scriptures, that sure, you don't have to believe in, you don't have to do anything. Just, that's why I mentioned the Good Samaritan parable, because as long as you were on the right religion and you had certain rituals like baptism or communing or some ritual like that, then you're saved. The only thing that you have to say is Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you 3 minutes before you die, you repent, you'll go to heaven. And this is how this is how people think.
Yeah, and that's why all these people claiming to be Christians, they can act like, douchebags and treat people like the
Yes.
lowest dirt, and then they'll say, oh, I'm a good person, Jesus is my Savior, Jesus saved me, everything's all right. So I can just treat you like dirt and be like just evil, and God thinks it's all right, And
Yeah,
I'm like, you don't know how unchristlike you're being at all. Like, you're just, that's what I think is the main problem with people like, not to get all political, but people like, Donald Trump and all these people that follow him, they think, oh, because they say some magic sinner's prayer, and everything, that, they can treat anyone like crap, and, that kind of thing. I'm a universalist myself. I believe that God is always with you. God has always been there, and it doesn't take a prayer to have him in. And if you don't say that prayer, you're damned or whatever. I've always believed that it's more of a thing where we recognize, that God is in us and has always been, and then when we realize that, the love pours out of us, and then we can be a blessing to other people.
Exactly.
And that kind of stuff. And I've tried to, again, when I try to tell this to people, they think it's the most satanic thing they've ever heard, and I'm like, what's so satanic and evil about loving people? What is so bad? It just boggles my mind, this religious brainwashing that's going on, and how far it's devolved, religion and everything, especially Christianity has devolved to where we're neglecting the poor. Where way back in ancient times, it was all about taking care of the poor and the sick and the needy, and now it's these guys, they can die, we don't care, we're right, and I'm like, how where did Jesus say that, and I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but this is just one of the many things that
it's perfect. It needed to be said. It needed to be said. Why? And I've been thinking while you were talking, and I said he is absolutely right. It is cultural too, because when we grew up with this division, you have to understand that unfortunately it's too fresh in certain people's memories when everybody was divided, segregation, and people. All of those things is still very fresh on people's mind and in the culture. When there is a country, when there is a household that is divided because of prejudice, it is a mental disease. It is a disease of the mind, and it doesn't let the soul evolve. So they use religion as a justification to their illness, because it is an illness. That's why when you hear these people talk, you say, he sounds like a moron. He sounds like an idiot, or she has no idea what the heck is she saying. It's a disease, it's a mental disease, that it's me against them. I am right, you are wrong. And because you're different than me, God favors me above you. And that is, it's a delusion. That's what they call it, the big delusion. People are asleep. They don't want to wake up. They really don't. Yeah. But we have 4 minutes and 23 seconds left on the clock. Thank you so much for calling and that amazing speech, because we really needed to hear that. We really needed to hear it, because this is a country that I was telling a friend of mine not even yesterday. Even the rest of the world is afraid of us. And even though the United States have always been, because of a superpower and this and that, now people are really afraid. People are really afraid because literally we're at a too much of a high level. There is no moral compass. And when there is no moral compass, we can cheat, we can lie, we can berate, we can discriminate in the name of God. And unfortunately, and this is unfortunate, people that claim that they are either Christian or whatever, especially Christians here in this specific arena, because you're not like me. My God is on my side. I can cheat. I can cheat on my wife. I can cheat on my husband. I can lie. I can do all those things, but God is on my side because I'm a part of a specific group and a specific ideology. All of you peoples are wrong. And when you mentioned the Trump thing, people are so triggered. People are so triggered that even if you post a picture, and that is for a specific side of the conversation, and if you don't say, I adore him, and you put anything else, goes crazy. How dare you? I am with Trump. You are this. People that don't know you, people that have no idea who you are, people that were your friends, people that were your family, people that actually requested your friendship because you guys had something in common, start attacking you for no reason, for a person that they put in the pedestal of godhood. Literally in a pedestal of godhood. And that happens a lot in politics. We put our candidates in a pedestal that they cannot compete with that type of pressure. And these are fallible human beings. These are people that have issues. They have a lot of issues. And unfortunately, people don't recognize that difference anymore. They don't.
90 seconds.
So, I'm going to close it with that. If you are going to put yourself in the position that say that I only do good, that I am the good person and my way or the highway because everybody else is wrong, you have to really evaluate that concept of yourself. When you're going to judge other human beings because they're not like you and label them as satanic, as black magic, then you really have an issue, because that means that your universe, that means that your plane, that means that your life is so limited that it cannot see beyond the tip of your nose. So I want to see you next time, next week, here at Knowledge from Behind the Veil. And blessed be.
This was another edition from Knowledge from Behind the Veil, every Wednesday night at 9 Eastern Time in the R.I.F.T Network. Let's uncover the mysteries of the universe, roll the curtain, and see what lies behind the veil.
10 seconds. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
So I want to thank Josh, and I want to thank Carton and everybody that got that stayed with me during this 2 hours. It is a very difficult topic, because it is a very difficult topic, but maybe at some point, for some people, it would give them a perspective of what real reality is that our perceptions and the perception of the person next to us, it's not going to be the same because we come from a different place. Literally come from a different place. People thinking that they can manipulate. This is why bad people, and I'm going to encase that with huge commas here, parentheses, bad people can actually manipulate those that think that they're good people. They think that they're good people. That's why they're so easy to manipulate. This is why politicians take advantage of their constituents. This is how church leaders actually rob their parishioners, because they can use your inability to admit that you're not a special snowflake, that you're like everybody else, and that everybody else comes from the same place and will go to the same place in their natural state, of course. That is the real evil. So, I'm going to leave you with that and see you next week. Remember to like, post, and share the video and or the link so you can actually hear it in the Blog Talk site. So thank you everybody for coming and listen to the show. It was amazing. So, bye-bye.